Hello, this is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 17 of The Grief of Politics, and I'm joined by Avin Carroll. Avin, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Good. We're recording a little bit later in the day, but it should be fine. We're fine. Yeah. So,
I hope so.
Yeah, to remind everybody, this is our podcast. It hits every month. And you can either go to the Google Play Store, Apple iTunes. We're on Spotify. Avin, just to let you know, on Spotify, we did get some hits. It's not a lot. It's still in the single digits, but people did listen through, and they did. And I think we have one subscriber, and some other people just listened to it and streamed it or whatever. So we are getting some hits on the old Spotify.
I'll take it.
Yeah, if you want to write to us at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Just let us know what episode you have a question or comment about, because I use that for another podcast I do, so that way I'm clear there. And, without further ado, Avin, I guess I baited you this month, but we were going over the subjects we wanted to talk about, and I said, how about the taxing the wealthy? And you said, oh, I'd love to do that. So my plan worked. No, I'm kidding. It was just one of the topics, and you wanted to talk about it. So, why did you want to talk about taxes and the wealthy?
So, we've had a lot of discussion over the last few years about the wealthy don't pay their fair share, and we need to be taxing the wealthy more. Particularly with Trump as president, there was a lot of tax cuts that kind of benefited the wealthy.
Right.
And, you and I have talked about it quite a bit. I'm very strongly of the opinion that okay, fine, we're going to tax the wealthy, but it isn't going to solve our problems. And I really feel like on the left, the politicians have done a really good job of selling their people that all the world problems will be solved if the evil wealthy paid their taxes.
Okay.
And it simply wouldn't be. They're not that rich. We spend money in the magnitude of trillions, which people just don't comprehend. It's so big, it's incomprehensible. So,
That's true.
I did some research on sort of statistics. You and I talked about a little bit. Kind of look at some of the wealthier people and their taxes and how much they pay.
Yeah, I think the original idea was to take.
You or I.
Yeah, it was to take 3 individuals, but we talked about that, and it's it's really hard to do that because it's more of an aggregate thing. So I guess we're just going to go over it then with,
Exactly. So I pulled up some statistics. I pulled up some articles on sort of the wealthy. Basically, I found a Business Insider kind of summary of the ProPublica article you sent me.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then specifically looked up some information on the Walton family because, there's a perception that the Waltons are crazy wealthy and don't pay their fair share and are just a bunch of greedy jerks. And so I wanted to look at kind of how much money they have and the public opinion or public image that's painted forward.
Uh-huh.
And then where'd my other article go?
There was a Tax Foundation article.
You get to see behind the screen. Oh no! Well, I've the other kind of fourth article, not directly intended for this, but just sort of as a curiosity piece. I was looking up the American citizens that have given the most money away, and I found an article from 2018 from Forbes that tallied up everyone's philanthropic donations and who has given the most money away.
Oh.
So it was really interesting, and the link to it that I sent you is broken.
Oh, well, cool. So
right.
Which article do you want to start? Because I'll just say very quickly, yeah, the left is very good about eat the rich and all that kind of stuff. But I think, looking at the ProPublica piece and then looking at the Walton piece from the Washington Post that you sent, it is very clear that there's this idea that I don't know. It just seems like they have an effective tax rate, which ProPublica talks about, and what they should be paying and what they're actually paying, and I think there's a massive discrepancy between those two. Now, I don't think that billionaires giving up all their money would solve every problem in the world. but I think the money that they're not paying.
Would it solve any?
I think it would. I think some of the governmental shortfalls that we see and the ideas of, it's the idea that, I mean, the articles that you even showed or shared that we'll get into shortly do kind of prove that, like, they're not paying kind of effectively what they should, which is a problem, and then
their fair share.
Right. And then that burden goes to you and I, the people that, middle class or make less. So to me, that's a problem because we're not going to be able to generate that kind of, money that they generate. So we're not, I don't know. Which article do you want to start with? Do you want to start with just the Tax Foundation one that just goes over?
So the Tax Foundation is really just data, and I wanted to have that to have actual, like, raw numbers,
right?
To compare against what the articles are saying, because, like, the Business Insider article, like I said, it summarizes the ProPublica article, and I'll give you all the details on this in a minute here, but they point blank say that they made their own metric up, which they call a true tax code or true tax rate,
right?
Which is arbitrary. Like, they invented it, and they invented it to make their point, which means that someone else could invent a number to make their other point. It's not raw facts. And so I wanted to look up what are the actual numbers. So, to get started, we talk about, and you just kind of took this point too, so I'm going to say we talk about, like, the wealthy don't pay their fair share. And basically everyone at this point knows, if they've done any reading on this or they have any interest in this topic, that the reason the uber wealthy and the very wealthy in our country do not pay as much of an effective tax rate is not because they aren't paying their income taxes, but because their wealth is tied to assets. And they borrow against those assets at a much lower percentage
that you and I could ever. We're not going to get those kind of interest rates going into a bank, that they're getting.
Well, not for a personal loan. I mean, these are secured loans, right? Like, hey, I'm going to loan you $10 billion against $10 billion in stock.
Right.
You and I would never get that, right? Because we don't have $10 billion in stock to get it.
Right.
I mean, and even if you put your house up to get a secured loan, like a HELOC or cash out refinance or anything, you're still only going to get whatever the market rates are.
Right.
So, no, we're not going to get access to that because we're not wealthy enough to cash out of our assets a livable income on an annualized basis. So, because of that, the amount of taxes that gets paid versus the amount of money that they have in access to spend is dramatically lower. If we look at the Business Insider article, this was Business Insider article titled, "The Wealthiest Americans Avoid Billions in Taxes by Voluntarily Doing Something Most Only Do Out of Necessity, Borrowing Money." This article was published on June 9th, 2021, and written by Tyler Sonnemaker. And if I butchered your name, Tyler, I apologize.
That's okay. If anybody listens to the show, they know we butcher a lot of names, and they're probably used to it by now.
So if you get towards the bottom of this article, they highlight that Elon Musk in what year was it? Between 2014 and 2018, paid a true tax rate, their made-up number, of 3.27%. The reason I say made up is because they took his tax rate on his earnings, but then they also looked at his wealth growth, or the growth in value of his assets, and then figured what he paid in taxes against the growth in wealth, as if the growth in wealth were income.
Right.
Now, true. With those numbers, that is an accurate presentation. The challenge I have is, you or I don't pay taxes on our wealth growth. But this year, the last year and a half, or 2 years actually, has been really good for homeowners. So I own an asset that has grown 33% since we bought our house.
Right.
But I don't pay taxes on that growth. And that's like over $100,000. I don't think it's fair that I would pay taxes on that. I don't think it's right that I pay tax on that because it's not actualized, realized income.
Okay.
But I did borrow against my house to do home improvements. Should I pay tax on the money I borrowed?
I mean, my point of this is it's it seems like me. I listen to this progressive podcast and they keep hammering home the fact when they talk about taxes that money is made up, and you could like scoff at that and whatever. Well, I mean,
we have a fiat currency system.
I don't. I've heard that too. What does that mean? I keep hearing that as well. I didn't look it up. I don't.
So money is a placeholder of value, and the value that it has is just arbitrarily assigned. So when the United States was originally founded, our money was based on the gold standard. Every dollar was backed by actual gold.
Right.
But at this point in time, that's no longer true.
Right.
In fiat currencies, values can be manipulated, go all over the place, do everything. You could say the same thing for a gold-backed or silver-backed currency. But yeah, we have fiat currency, so it is imaginary. It doesn't exist. And when you say that money is made up, I think one of the big things they're getting at is like stock value is imaginary value. That money doesn't actually exist.
Right.
It's
well, the only thing I'll say is that
it's made up.
They do point out in this article, Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison did disclose he used $250 million of collateral to secure a $9.7 billion personal line of credit. So
250 million shares
right.
to back up that line of credit.
So, but what this seems to be happening to me, something that I don't think you and I can do, and you know more about this than I do, and I am generally asking, I'm not like leading you or anything, but the idea is they have stocks which, like you said, are in a way fabricated by the whims of the market, shareholders, trades, that kind of thing. So they have this wealth sitting there. But they don't really have the capital because they know if they cash the stock out, then they have to pay taxes on it, right? So if it sits in whatever stock account, then they don't have to pay taxes. That's correct, right? I'm just asking logistically how this works. So if it sits there,
correct.
So they could say, well, right now Tesla's trading, and it's like $750, whatever it is right now. I'm worth $1 billion. I know he's worth more than that. I'm just making it easy because I don't have the number in front of me.
Yep.
But so he's basically telling the bank, "Hey, I'm worth $1 billion. I need a credit line of $100 million." So then the $100 million is money that he actually puts in his bank account that he can spend, right?
Well, it's a line of credit.
Right.
So, a line of credit isn't here's $100 million cash, spend as you please. A line of credit is you have access to this $100 million to spend as you see fit.
Right.
Kind of like a home equity line of credit. Like you may never use it, but you might have access to that equity from your home to do home improvement projects or pay off a car or whatever it may be.
Right. So, but one thing I wanted to ask, because it's really weird. There's something in this article that made me. Let's see if I can find there was like two sentences. Oh, right here. It's like midway through the article. Borrowing money allows the ultra wealthy to earn minuscule salaries, avoiding a 37% federal tax on income. So they're avoiding an income tax because they're like, hey, I don't make any money.
Essentially, right? Like a lot of
or they take lower
level
salaries, right? They reduce their. I know
Yep.
I know what was it? Steve Jobs got like $1 salary a year, $100. It was like because he's like all my money's tied up on stock options. My house is paid for. Like I don't need anything, Something like that, right? The point I was making was that what I see is like there's literally this. I'm not gonna say it's fraud because they can legally do it, but there's this weird shell thing going on where they're like, these stock options that I'm worth, the whatever, I'm gonna borrow against that, And then since, like you said, you borrowed money against your house, you're not paying taxes on that. They pretty much just get that money, and then probably what I've heard them doing is buying back their own stock, right? So they'll take however much.
No, so
they
that's
pulled
a
off of-
corporation. That's businesses. That's not what
Right.
we want to see happening. When you're an individual purchasing the stock of your own company, you're still buying it, but they get kind of like insider access. They get it for cheaper, or it's paid out as compensation instead of money.
Yeah, I didn't see. I didn't send it to you, but it was reported during this whole, the Ukraine Russia thing with fuel, that BP was being interviewed by like MSNBC. They got massive profits because obviously the price of gas skyrocketed, and they just bought back their own stock. They didn't invest in a new infrastructure. They didn't invest in any new, which I think logistically they can't drill anymore, but they didn't like up refining that we know of. At least it was on the business thing, so they're probably not talking about the technology side. But to me, this is the amazing thing that's going on that we as a society need to look at a tax code. The idea that wealthy people like this can move these massive amounts of money around, but are they putting it towards an infrastructure like building another factory, hiring more workers, giving people raises? Anecdotally,
And that is the most common argument, right? From like can't raise tax on the wealthy side of the argument. The most common thing said is like, no, the wealthy need the money because they're the ones that are investing in infrastructure and paying wages and hiring people. Right?
Right. Yeah, that's the thing, but like time and time again, I have seen at least that is a lower percentage of what they're doing as opposed to buying back stock options or giving themselves or the other shareholders bonuses. Well, they're, I guess, fiduciarily tied. They have to give those bonuses out because for whatever. My thing is, it just seems like there's a lot of like recycling of money, not really a lot of investment, because the moment you cash that out or whatever, that these things, they're taxed, right? And that's what they want to avoid. So they're doing everything they can to just avoid Uncle Sam,
And as long as the tax code allows it, of course they're going
Right.
to do it, right? Like it's what you would do. You hire accountants, teams of people at this point in time to manage your money, and of course
Right.
they're going to do the responsible thing with that money. So let's say, Joe, that you invent a doohickey, and that doohickey makes you crazy wealthy, multi billionaire, and you hire a bunch of accountants and financial advisors and people to manage your money because that's not what got you wealthy. You're not like the most intelligent financial manager, so you hire people that are more experienced with it.
You got me there. I would definitely. I'd
So-
have to have a team of people.
So you do that and they manage your money, and in so doing, you pay an extremely low tax rate. What do you think would be fair in your eyes for your money? I have my own concept of how we fix this, but it's way different than what we're getting from like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and AOC.
I know at one time Andrew Yang brought up taxing the actual stock transactions. So any time that they purchased stock or sold stock, those would be taxed. That's one thing that could probably happen, I would imagine, to
And
someone
do
like
that, like, you're president of the doohickey company and they're not paying you a salary, they're paying you in stock. So whenever the stock is moved, you would pay tax based off of the value of that stock at that time.
Yeah, I didn't read into his plan, but that was one of the things that he floated, to actually look at the stock side of things, because that seems to be missing from the equation right now, right? Like you said, it's just, like I said, this is all legal. They're not doing anything illegal. My thesis is just that, like, again,
It's not fair.
Yeah, it's like it makes people that make less, like myself and yourself, shoulder more of a tax burden than these people that obviously, if you're worth $2 billion or $1.5 billion, you could probably lose some of those millions, towards, like, what would that hurt, But then people say, well, they're not worth that. It's all tied up in stock options. It's like, so this money needs to get back into circulation.
So
And there
that's what
hasn't
it
been,
is. They are
yeah,
that's their net worth. It's not their actual income. And in the United States,
right,
we tax income, and income tax is what's paid. And these articles are talking about income tax, but it's
right,
not income, which is why Elizabeth Warren, and I'm pretty sure Bernie's backed it or some variation of it, have proposed wealth taxes. And a
right,
wealth tax says your wealth grew from a billion to 2 billion, and this year you need to pay tax on that growth.
right.
So that's kind of their solution to this
Well, what was
problem,
your
because at that point, like, you're not borrowing money against it, or I mean, you could be borrowing money against it, but no matter what, you're paying tax on your growth in net worth.
right? Well, what was your solution? What was your? You said it wasn't. It was a different solution than what they said, or you had a different.
I have my own different concept, but kind of going into that a little bit more and sort of giving my own opinion on why that's wrong is cool. Over the last 2 years, right? Like the ProPublica article is highlighting 2014 to 2018, but from 2020 to 2022, the last 2 years, we have seen massive growth in wealth from some of the big tech billionaires.
Right.
You know, I used to work for a regional billionaire doing IT support for their philanthropy company, and I've seen how they give money away, literally paying staffs of people, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of people in Bill Gates' case, which I wasn't working for Bill Gates, but like to give away their money. So not only are they giving their money away, but they're paying people to give their money away. So they've got like a whole staff.
They set up foundations and things to
Yeah. And I guarantee you, people working for them are making really good money with really good benefits.
Yeah. Well, what is your?
So they're able to do that, right? So my problem with the wealth tax concept is, okay, there's been a massive amount of growth. We need to tax that massive amount of growth. But as we've seen this year, with the stock market now coming down and the kind of the movement into a recession, I think technically we're defined as a recession at the moment because of the stock market, but I don't think most of us are feeling it because the job market's crazy hot. Are we going to give them that money back when they take a loss of 200 billion because all their wealth is tied to stock and stock market is hyper volatile? No, we're just going to keep taking money from them. So how does that work, right? Like it's not a fair thing. And it means that the ledger for the government, the income sheet for the government is hyper volatile. So how do you write a budget? Oh, the stock market crashed. And it encourages the government to manipulate the stock market because it's in their best interest for people to go up, even if it might be inflated and create a bubble and
I would argue that some of that is happening right now because there's a knock-on effect without getting into all of Elon Musk's inner workings and turning this into a side episode, as it were, about Elon Musk. There has been this talk online of, I don't know what's going to happen with him in Twitter. I'm not going to bag on him for what I heard some people talk about. He's putting his sale of Twitter on hold because apparently Twitter did not disclose how many of their accounts are bots or fake, which I'm progressive, but I see if you're going to invest in something, you want to have full faith disclosure to know that what you're buying is a good product. If Twitter isn't going to disclose that to him, I can totally understand why he's going to walk away. I'm not one of these progressives. It's like, oh, he's walking away, he's not going to do it. But what I will say is that a lot of people online were talking like the Tesla, when he borrowed against the shares to get the money to buy Twitter to put in the offer, Tesla started trading lower. And people said, well, this kind of creates a perfect situation for him. If there's a way for him to walk away from the deal with Tesla, he still has this money, right? And can't he just buy back more Tesla stock at a lower price, therefore buying more stock? And
thus increasing the stock price?
Yeah, and thus increasing the stock price because he's buying more stock. So it's almost like this self-fulfilling prophecy. And so
he has to be careful with that because, like, when you're buying and selling stock at that level, you have to, like, have the transactions certified. Like, you can't just, and certified is not the right word, but you can't just do it because when you're someone like Elon Musk, you control so much of a stock, it can be stock manipulation. He's already gotten in trouble for that more than once.
Yeah,
He's not gotten like fined or sent to jail, or actually maybe
Well,
he was
I think he
fined.
got fined, but I think it was like $100,000, like some, you know what I mean? Like for him, it would be
Couch change.
yeah. But my yeah, but he's like, oh, let me go. It's like that old Simpsons thing where like Burns gets fined and he's like, get my, they're like it's an absurd amount of money, and then Burns is like, hey, Smithers, get my wallet, and pulls out whatever. Yeah, I mean, but that's what I've seen over and over and over again is like I haven't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, this is all anecdotal, but everything I read is, again, the BP headline of, hey, we made record profits and we bought back a lot of stock. And, if this thing with Twitter doesn't work out, I bet you dollars to no nuts Elon Musk is going to buy a lot more shares of Tesla back. And so to me, okay, say the fair share argument isn't right. Like you said, it would be hard to come up with a budget if these taxes you're taking from these massive corporations is fluctuating, right? Because of the stock market and all that.
People, because we're talking about individuals, we're not talking about corporations.
Right. Well, anyway, like you're right. It would be difficult to come up with a budget for this because those numbers are fluctuating, right? But like right now, I mean, that's my thing. Is like, well, then what do you do? Because if they're just recycling money in like a tumbler, like. And then you and I have to shoulder this burden. I don't know what we could do to get out of what we're doing. Again, I'm progressive, and I don't know all the progressive slogans. I can't think of any right now. But the idea is, I do think that they are in a way there is kind of a responsibility. Like one thing we didn't even bring up is subsidies. Most of these corporations have taken millions of dollars.
We're talking about people, not corporations.
Well, what I'm saying is these people, like Jeff Bezos, took money to start Amazon. So the government invested in that person to create a business. So wouldn't it also be like just like a bank? Hey,
he did.
We've given you money.
The government invested in Jeff when he was working out of his garage so he could grow Amazon?
Well, I mean, he got a loan from his parents.
Where'd you see this? Because I want to read it. I want to know what program he got.
He got a loan. He got money from his parents and whatever. What I'm saying is we have subsidized like the building of these factories as well. Trump talked about it with those the refrigerating systems and the air conditioners they were going to do in Texas. Like we do these super sweet tax incentives to get people to come to cities so they'll build factories. So we give them super sweet deals on interest rates and things like that. And so my question to you is, what do we...
again, moving to Texas is a good example.
Right. So then my question is, can we get that money back? Like, obviously, they're building cars, they're helping the economy, and they're making money and profit. So as the government, couldn't you go to these people and say, listen, we've given you, I'm just going to pull them on, I'm bad with numbers, you know that. Hey, we've given you $100 million to build this factory. You have now made $500 million. We want our $100 million back, at least. Because now you've proven that you can make that amount of money and whatever.
So these programs, these tax incentives that are given to large corporations to move to cities are done with the intention of bringing jobs into the community, and the money that's lost in tax revenue by giving tax breaks to large businesses is supposed to be made up by increased tax revenue from sales taxes, or if you live in a state with an income tax, additional revenue from all those employees, right? Like that's supposed to be where it comes back. That's how the money is made back. We moved our large and successful business into your community. We brought jobs, which have, of course, all of their associated jobs. Tens of thousands of people moved in, so now we need construction workers. Now we need more stores. Now we need more gas stations, right? Like all of that is supposed to generate the additional revenue to make up for the loss against the business. That's the hypothesis. That's how the money comes back. They're buying an opportunity to increase their tax base and improve their community by giving a tax incentive.
Okay, well that's to me
that doesn't work. I've read articles that are like, yeah, it's going to work, but it's going to take 20 years for us to make all that money back, even with the job growth. I remember seeing that somewhere for Amazon, I think, when they were doing their big...
Weren't they going to go to, like, they were going to go to some city? Didn't a bunch of cities send them, like, sizzle
when they were looking at doing
city?
the whole HQ2 thing, a bunch of cities all bid, and they
Did
looked at some of the proposals.
Did they pick another?
Yeah.
It wasn't New York, was it?
Virginia.
Oh, okay. I mean, we're in Washington State. I see their stuff all the time. They're still here. It's not like they're leaving. They built a glass dome.
Correct.
not,
No, they
they're
said
not going
point
anywhere.
blank they weren't leaving. That I mean, there was definitely around our area though. There was a feel like they were leaving, and you have to be honest. The city of Seattle has been extremely hostile towards Amazon from a tax perspective.
Hello, this is Joseph Carlson with the Grief of Politics. I just want to give you guys a quick message. The podcast cut off pretty abruptly. We weren't able to recover the rest of Avin's side of the conversation because we record independently, so that way we don't lose any kind of quality or fidelity. He sends me his file, I line it up. That's how it works. And we talked about maybe going back and kind of re-arguing the case, but I think that will be kind of rough. I mean, I don't want to be, it's hard when you're passionately in a moment with papers in front of you. We were reading from some articles. We go on to read the other articles. It's hard to go back and kind of relive that moment. I'm passionate about a lot of stuff. I can talk about a lot of stuff for a very long time. But this specific conversation, I think, was something that kind of got, it's once in a lifetime thing. I'm not going to say it got heated because Avin and I are both 40-year-old men, but we were both very passionate. He believed later on in a VAT system, so basically every part of the transaction is taxed. That way people can't escape taxes through, hiding their money, which I thought was a very interesting way to deal with the problem. His point is, he brings up the tax.org article that basically, I don't want to quote everything in the article, but basically what it says is that the wealthiest people in the world are shouldering the highest percentage of tax because they're able to pay more money, so they pay more of the tax. My counterpoint was the fact that since they're not reporting income, that the money that they're being taxed isn't the full scope of what they're bringing in. Avin said, it's not their income tax. It's not their income that's being taxed. It's the total of all income tax. The rich are making up the difference. Not the difference, but they're making up a larger percentage than taxpayers. Listen, I'll say this without Avin being here to defend the point. I think that there, for a long time, to not get too soapboxy, but a long time in this country in America, we've been told that if you just work really hard, you can make things happen, and that is true. But in my opinion, there's been a thumb on the scales of the ultra wealthy. I'm not talking about people that are entrepreneurs that are successful with businesses. To me, there seems to be upper middle. There's upper middle class, upper class, and there seems to be a upper class plus. So people that are owning successful businesses, maybe they have some stock options, they have a very nice house, maybe they have a few nice houses, maybe they have a vacation home somewhere. I'm talking about the 1% that live literally by a different set of rules than the rest of us. And I think listening to this podcast while I was editing it, what really hit me is how these ultra wealthy individuals or corporations, Avin and I talked about that, a little bit. You heard a little bit of that. But I think my point after listening to this and editing it is these rich individuals are literally keeping their money out of circulation so it isn't touched by the tax man. And I think those things are not applicable to the normal working class person that is working 9 to 5 and punching a clock. People are not able to utilize those same tools. In fact, I'd like to bring up an ancillary example of the college loan debt thing that's going on. I'll be really quick because we're probably going to talk about this in an episode. But many people on the right and conservatives say, what, we're just going to forgive debt now? I had to pay my college loans. You should have to pay your college loans. We don't just forgive debt in this country. You pay your fair share. Individuals pay their fair share. but corporations do not. We saw that in 2008. Banks wrote off so much debt. Nobody went to jail. We knew there was something illegal going on that was going to crush our financial system. But, the American people were not okay with it. But the people that were in charge passed these mechanisms and savings on to other people in the top percent. So my argument is, yes, work hard, do right by your family and your community, make money, but also you have a responsibility to the community around you and to the people around you to say, I can't just hide this money or hoard this money. It's got to go back in circulation. In fact, I didn't bring it up, but I was listening to a piece by some people. I listen to some progressives. And there's an economic theory that says that by releasing money into the economy, like if you were to take some of this ultra wealth that these people are hoarding and put it back in the economy, it would be a way to kind of pay down inflation. And it would in fact affect our what's going on with inflation now with we're being threatened with high interest rates and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to get into all this ancillary stuff. I'll say this. At the end, Avin and I had a really good talk. We were both very passionate about what we thought. We didn't yell or break down. And I think that's one thing I actually really like about our podcast, listening to it and editing it, is even though we disagree, we don't yell, we don't cut each other off. I think we did that when we were 18 because Avin and I have known each other for a really long time. But now we even talked about it at the end of the podcast when we were talking about all the technical problems we had. He said, yeah, it's pretty good talk and everything, and, you got passionate this and I got passionate that. And I said, well, we're a little bit older now. You don't have to hold on to things, like you used to. You can just let things go, So I think that was the lesson with this is like Avin's a really good friend. I disagree with them on a lot of stuff. In fact, I disagree with a lot of people, but I still like hearing their point of view because you want to hear where they're coming from. That's what I try to do, and Avin and I talk about that all the time on the pod. I do try to listen to conservative voices. I do try to listen to Ben Shapiro. I say try because I usually watch the small clips and parts of his show because I want to see where people are coming from. I do try to watch The Blaze. I haven't done that in a little bit. I probably need to get back to that. There's some people I will not watch because I think that they're just, and even on the left, I don't understand a lot of new issues on the left, like trans rights and stuff like that. But my thing isn't anger to be upset about those things that I don't understand. It's like, well, obviously everybody has respect for one another. If I misgender somebody, I try to apologize. I've done it before and be humble about it. And just try to talk to the person as a person and leave it at that. And I'll bring up this one comment about being civil and things like that. I guess we could use a little bit more of that because as we were recording this episode in Buffalo, a shooter came to a supermarket. I believe it was a top supermarket in Buffalo, and he killed, as of this recording, I believe 10 people. And it was a hate crime. He wrote a manifesto, published it online. He live streamed the shooting on Twitch until Twitch took it down. And that's what we're going to talk about. I think I said domestic violence at the end of this, but I got cut off. You won't hear that. But I think what we're really going to talk about is domestic terrorism, something that's coming up. But I know I'm progressive, but I'm not going to attack conservatives. The only thing I'll say is that there seems to be this massive discrepancy with how background checks work in this country and how they are implemented with people. Because this man that went to New York or was living in New York and shot up this grocery store, he apparently acquired a gun legally. The background check was done on him, and they found nothing. But the man had a history of mental illness, and he was taken into custody because he was a high schooler. His evaluation only lasted a day and a half, and then apparently he was let go. Now, this is all developing, but I really want to talk about this in the next episode because I think it's important to really come to terms with there's this kind of crazy underbelly of stuff that's going on in this country. And again, I know I'm progressive. I'm not going to try to attack the right or conservatives, but I think it's something we all need to look at. And I'll say this much to just plug everything really quickly towards the end of the podcast because we normally do that. go to Avin's YouTube page. It's Your Agent Guide. He's got a lot of good tips there for getting a house. In fact, it got cut off in this podcast, but he basically taught me the difference between a condo and a house, and that was very nice of him to do. My whole life, I didn't know the difference between a condo and a house. Avin helped out with that. The videos are really short on YouTube. They're usually about 5 to 7 minutes. He was showing me how the analytics work. I've started putting old episodes of my podcast, Gaming with Grief, up on YouTube and started to get into analytics. And it's amazing to me that, I mean, I guess I've done it too, but usually it's longer videos. With the retention and things, people only watch like 2 minutes of a 7-minute video. I want to watch Avin's video to support him. I'm not as passionate about real estate as he is, but I have learned something from the video. So again, if you're looking for any kind of real estate advice in the Northwest, Avin is to the North Sound, north of Seattle. But if you're looking for something, go to his videos. You can drop him a comment in the YouTube comments. And all of his information on his website is there. I actually didn't write it down, but it's all there in the YouTube comments. You can click on his guide and all that kind of stuff. For me, please go to the Gaming with Grief podcast. It hits every Sunday/Monday at about 7 a.m. on the website, which is www.gamingwithgrief.com. Go there, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the show. I'm up to episode 156, so that's pretty amazing. Next week will be a shorter episode, I think, but I'm actually going to re-talk to another guest that I had in the next few weeks because there was an old friend of mine that played D&D for the first time. He ran his first game. He was a DM for the first time, and I had him on after his first session, or first 2 sessions, and his big campaign is done. And so I'm going to have him on the podcast. I've talked many times that I think D&D is pretty good therapy, and I want to have him and he had some reflections on it and stuff like that. So I want to have him on the podcast to talk about, what it was like shepherding your own campaign and things like that. But again, this is a short episode this week, guys. Thank you for supporting us. If you want to write to us, write to Avin and I at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com and just let us know what episode you're talking about. This one's a little bit shorter because we had the technical issues. We were just getting going. But anyway, everybody be safe, be good to each other, and we will talk to you guys next month.